Ready for another mission? Let's recap everything from Lioness Season 2. The story continues after Joe returns home, but normal life proves harder than combat. While her family jokes about her terrible cooking, a news report reveals that Congresswoman Hernandez has been kidnapped because of her anti-illegal immigration stance. CIA agent Kyle arrives with new information. Hernandez carried a hidden tracker, and the signal leads to Mexico. At the White House, Caitlin and other officials argue over the response before assigning the mission to the Lioness team. Joe has only 3 weeks to rescue Hernandez before the election, but the CIA receives almost no military support. Joe leaves her family behind once again and reunites with the Lioness team. Disguised, they enter Mexico and ambush a group linked to the kidnappers. After eliminating them, they use Hernandez's tracker to locate the main group. A fierce firefight follows, ending with the deaths of the kidnappers and Hernandez's rescue. However, the operation was never authorized by Mexico. Mexican authorities mistake the team for terrorists and launch a massive pursuit. The Lioness team fights through police forces before escaping. Soon, the Mexican army deploys Humvees, forcing Joe to call for CIA air support. Trapped between enemy fire and a river, the team is saved when armed helicopters arrive and a rescue boat extracts them. Although the mission succeeds, Dean is killed. Devastated, Joe punches Kyle, and their fight ends when her husband calls after seeing the news. Joe tearfully tells him she's alive. Back in the US, military officials try to place one of their own inside the Lioness program, realizing they want control over CIA operations. Joe argues with them and is placed on administrative leave. At home, her trauma worsens. When a backpacking couple invites her children to see artwork inside their vehicle, Joe draws her gun before realizing they mean no harm. Her husband comforts her as she struggles with years of war. Soon, Caitlin assigns a new mission. The target is cartel leader Josie Carrillo, who runs a drug and illegal oil empire. His brother Pablo is a lawyer, and Pablo's daughter, Josie Carrillo, is a decorated U.S. Army pilot with multiple tours in Afghanistan and numerous medals. The CIA plans to recruit Josie and use her connection to bring down Alvaro from the inside. Unlike Mexico, this operation has full military support. While traveling through Iraq during a massive sandstorm, Joe asks how the convoy navigates with almost zero visibility. A soldier jokes that they simply follow the vehicle ahead, moments before the lead Humvee hits a landmine and explodes. Joe wakes up amid the wreckage as Iraqi insurgents ambush the convoy. Despite superior equipment, American forces are overwhelmed by endless waves of militants until an airstrike is called in. Armed helicopters arrive and wipe out the insurgents. Back at base, Josie Carrillo arrives and immediately clashes with Joe over being assigned as her escort. Their argument turns into a fistfight before the base commander intervenes. Joe then insults the commander and reminds everyone that she is the highest authority there. Joe privately questions Josie about Alvaro, Pablo, her family's wealth, and where her loyalties truly lie. Overwhelmed, Josie breaks down and admits she will always love her homeland. Joe then asks one final question, whether she has any tattoos, before quietly closing the office door. The following morning, CIA agents disguised as police enter Pablo Carrillo's mansion under the pretense of a routine inspection. They secretly install surveillance software in the security room, allowing CIA headquarters to monitor the entire Carrillo family. Despite the operation's success, Joe remains concerned. Josie barely knows Alvaro, doesn't speak Spanish, has never been to Mexico, and clearly wants nothing to do with the CIA. Caitlin tells Joe they have no choice but to use Josie, even if they never fully trust her. Only Joe can decide whether Josie is the right choice. Back home, Joe finds her house completely silent and assumes her family has been kidnapped. She searches the house with her gun drawn before finding her husband relaxing in the bathtub while their daughters are at tutoring. After calming down, they watch a news report claiming Josie caused friendly fire in Iraq and was removed from the military. Joe reveals the story is fake and says she'll return to duty tomorrow. Before leaving, she tries to reconnect with her daughters, but her oldest remains distant and resentful. Meanwhile, Caitlin again requests Navy Special Forces and QRF support for the Lioness team, but government officials refuse, believing the cartel isn't a serious enough threat. At Fort Bliss, Josie arrives and meets Bobby. She quickly experiences culture shock as the Lioness team ignores privacy and treats each other harshly. Even the communal showers make her uncomfortable, but she slowly begins adapting to their lifestyle. Her training begins with a hostage rescue demonstration by Bobby, who completes it flawlessly in under 5 seconds. Josie performs well during shooting drills despite distractions, but during an indoor assault simulation, she accidentally shoots a hostage after copying Bobby's route instead of thinking for herself. Joe arrives and takes over the training. Josie is placed inside an advanced VR simulation where a terrorist holds a hostage at gunpoint. Rather than shoot, Josie tries to negotiate and is killed. The team watches in silence as Joe confronts her. Josie insists saving the hostage mattered more, but Joe argues that the Lioness mission is to eliminate targets at any cost. Kyle believes her hesitation proves she doesn't belong on the team. Joe then pressures Josie emotionally, reminding her that everyone in Lioness is willing to die for their country. Joe hands her a phone and orders her to call her father. Josie breaks down in tears as she speaks to him. Still unconvinced, Joe asks Caitlin to remove Josie from the program, but Caitlin refuses. She believes Josie could eventually betray her family and become one of the CIA's greatest assets. Joe is ordered not only to keep Josie on the team, but to protect her at all costs. Later, Joe notices a vehicle following her and calls Kyle for assistance. Together, they stop the car and discover the driver is Raymond, an FBI narcotics agent. Raymond reveals the FBI knows the Lioness team is targeting Josie Carrillo and wants to participate in the operation. Joe realizes the FBI only wants credit for the mission. Caitlin advises her to cooperate, explaining that powerful people want the FBI involved to keep the CIA under control. Refusing could jeopardize the operation or cost Joe her position. With no choice, Joe accepts. She then visits Cruz and asks her to rejoin the Lioness program to protect Josie. Although Cruz hates Lioness after being forced to kill 2 unarmed civilians during a previous mission, she reluctantly agrees because Joe trusts her. The next day, Raymond briefs the team about a cartel ranch allegedly being used for drug trafficking. However, he admits the intelligence is already a month old. Joe pulls up updated satellite images showing the compound is heavily defended. After discussing several strategies, Two Cups proposes splitting into 2 5-man teams to attack from opposite sides before regrouping in the center, while air support destroys the compound afterward. Joe approves the plan. The Lioness team boards helicopters and heads to Mexico. During the flight, Josie learns all communications have been disabled, meaning neither team can contact each other or headquarters. After landing safely, the first team silently eliminates 5 guards along the perimeter, while the second team lands on the opposite side. However, the helicopters attract attention, forcing them to kill several cartel members investigating the noise. Both teams breach the compound and eliminate additional guards before making a horrifying discovery. Hundreds of kidnapped girls, most under 18, are being held inside. Joe notices identification numbers tattooed on one victim's arm and realizes they are trafficking victims. Before the team can react, 3 police vehicles arrive outside the ranch. Joe orders the vehicles destroyed, and the resulting explosions alert the entire compound. Joe realizes they can no longer destroy the ranch. There are too many innocent girls inside. She orders extraction and a retreat, but secretly hides a tracking device in one girl's shoe, telling her not to let anyone find it. Back at base, Joe confronts Raymond over the outdated intelligence. He claims he only identified the ranch as a transfer point, but Joe is too angry to listen. The sight of hundreds of trafficked girls has shaken her deeply. Determined to save them, Joe asks Caitlin for permission to return. However, Caitlin explains that the traffickers are already moving the victims, and rescuing them would require a massive military operation, not just the Lioness team. She denies the request and orders Joe to stay focused on the original mission. Joe delivers the decision to the team, but nobody accepts it. Even Josie loses her temper, accusing Joe of being heartless before storming out. Joe orders Cruz to follow and protect her. Kyle also questions Joe's decision, but she reminds him, "My team, my rules." When nobody obeys her orders, she contacts headquarters, and only a direct command from the deputy director gets the team moving again. Secretly, Joe asks Bobby to track the locator hidden in the girl's shoe. Bobby immediately agrees. Joe then brings Kyle into the plan and asks Raymond for FBI support. Raymond refuses and insists the FBI should take command, until Kyle threatens to involve another agency. Raymond quickly changes his mind. Meanwhile, Josie confides in Cruz about her fears. Alvaro isn't just a target, he's her uncle. Cruz tells her there are only 3 kinds of people: good people, bad people, and ordinary people. She reminds Josie that her family profits from innocent suffering and that, as a soldier, her duty is to protect those victims. Deep down, Josie knows she's right. Joe later announces they're returning to Mexico. During the flight, Cruz suggests recruiting Josie's father instead of Josie. Joe points out that even if he cooperates, he'll still likely spend years in prison. But the idea stays with her. Joe presents the new plan to Josie, convince her father to become a CIA informant. If he refuses, he'll fall alongside Alvaro. Wanting to protect her family, Josie finally agrees. After landing in Mexico, Josie heads home with Cruz while Joe returns to the United States. 3 Lioness operators remain nearby to monitor Josie's father. At the Carrillo home, Josie's mother warmly welcomes them, but dinner quickly becomes tense. Josie claims she left the military and now works as a civilian pilot. Her father becomes suspicious when Cruz admits she's military, making Josie doubt whether she can ever convince him. Meanwhile, Joe joins a narcotics task force near the border to rescue the trafficked girls. Using the tracking device, they locate the traffickers, new position, and move in under cover of darkness. Joe quickly realizes the narcotics officers are inexperienced. A sniper identifies 6 armed traffickers guarding a riverbank 500 meters away. Joe orders the attack. The sniper kills 2 guards instantly, and a firefight erupts. Despite the ambush, the traffickers fight back aggressively and even deploy attack drones. Joe's team slowly loses ground as the battle intensifies. Eventually, Joe spots the kidnapped girls, but the sniper can't get a clear shot. With no alternatives, Joe leads the team closer. Then, disaster strikes. A trafficker rushes forward and detonates a suicide bomb. When the smoke clears, the battlefield is in ruins. The rescue mission has failed. The girls are gone, multiple operatives are dead, and every lead has vanished. Consumed by guilt, Joe blames herself for pushing the mission forward. A furious narcotics officer confronts her over the deaths of his men, but Joe coldly reminds him that the operation never officially existed. There will be no recognition, no reports, and no public acknowledgement, and anyone who talks about it will regret it. Raymond admits he never expected the traffickers to possess military-grade drones, suggesting a much larger organization is involved. Before they can discuss it further, a medical evacuation helicopter arrives. Joe immediately realizes Caitlin sent it. At the same time, Josie finally tells her father the truth. She's working for the CIA. Enraged, her father slaps her across the face. Cruz watches from upstairs, while nearby Lioness operators monitor the mansion through surveillance equipment. Josie's father claims the CIA is responsible for allowing drugs into America and insists that those claiming to fight for justice are the true villains. He warns Josie that working for the CIA will ruin her life. When Josie tries to defend herself, he slaps her again. This time, Cruz intervenes. She throws him to the ground, points a gun at him, and gives him a choice. Help bring down Alvaro Carrillo or lose everything, and possibly die tonight. She gives him 30 seconds to decide. At the same time, the Lioness operators quietly move around the mansion, eliminate 2 bodyguards, and begin searching the property. During the search, one operative notices the housekeeper behaving suspiciously and immediately restrains her. To everyone's surprise, she is carrying a hidden listening device given to her by American police officers. The operator realizes she's an informant tied to the narcotics task force and immediately calls Joe. Joe has already boarded Caitlin's aircraft, where she finally realizes the severity of her injuries. Shrapnel in her abdomen has damaged her liver, and her heart rate is dangerously low. After learning about the informant, she orders a new secure communication channel before revealing her condition. Caitlin diverts to the nearest hospital while the co-pilot fights to keep Joe alive. Terrified for the first time in years, Joe calls her husband, says a few weak words, and loses consciousness. Meanwhile, Washington erupts into chaos. The CIA blames the FBI for hiding intelligence, the FBI blames the Lioness team, and the Narcotics Division demands accountability. Congressman Edwin forces everyone to reveal their secrets, exposing the existence of the classified Operation Black, though its details remain hidden. Back at the Lioness base, Kyle interrogates Raymond about Operation Black, but he refuses to speak until Caitlin pressures him by mentioning his family. Raymond finally reveals that Josie's housekeeper once worked for his family, and that Josie's father's mansion was deliberately sold to him by the Narcotics Bureau so they could monitor him for years. The team realizes they were never in control. Joe survives her injuries and apologizes to her husband, but admits she still has unfinished business. A superior orders her to command remotely during recovery, but Joe refuses and demands the CIA stop interfering with her team. Still suspicious, Caitlin moves the team to a new safe house and continues questioning Raymond with a lie detector while Kyle threatens him. Raymond finally confesses that the American Narcotics Bureau has secretly collaborated with Mexican cartels for years, while judges, politicians, and federal agents profit from the drug trade. Kyle realizes the mission is far more dangerous than expected, and Caitlin orders the investigation paused. The team considers the mission a disaster. Josie's father remains unstable, and Raymond has been missing for over 24 hours. Kyle proposes blaming British intelligence, but Caitlin instead convinces Raymond to continue helping the Lioness team and even returns his phone and handgun. Raymond agrees. Soon after, Kyle brings Josie's father back for the next phase of the operation. Caitlin later visits Joe, warns her not to let emotions override orders, and assigns her a new mission. The next morning, the entire Lioness team is recalled to base for what may be their deadliest operation. The CIA reveals that 2 Chinese operatives entered Iran from Turkey and are believed to be connected to the ambush near the border. They must be eliminated. Since entering Iranian airspace is nearly impossible, Jill proposes disguising an armed helicopter as a transport aircraft, with Josie piloting the extraction. Despite the mission being nearly suicidal, Joe immediately volunteers to lead it. Before leaving, Joe calls her husband one final time, knowing it could be their last conversation. Hours later, the team arrives at a US base near Iran, checks their gear, and prepares for battle. Joe insists on joining despite her injuries. The commander explains they'll fly low through western valleys to avoid radar and warns them to stay away from a nearby Iranian Revolutionary Guard base, while Cruz volunteers as the helicopter's door gunner. Meanwhile, 2 snipers monitor the target compound. After the Chinese operatives arrive and later depart in a convoy, the operation begins. Josie and Cruz attack from the helicopter while the snipers reposition, destroying the convoy within seconds. Then, disaster strikes. A missile hits the helicopter's tail. Despite Josie's efforts, the aircraft crashes, and nobody knows if she and Cruz survived. Joe immediately leads the remaining operators to the crash site, but enemy reinforcements intercept them. A massive firefight erupts as the snipers provide cover and armored vehicles join the battle. Bobby destroys one vehicle with a launcher, but more enemies arrive. Outnumbered and pinned down, Joe orders smoke grenades and a tactical retreat while waiting for reinforcements. Another enemy tank appears, but the snipers kill its gunner and disable it with an anti-tank launcher. Joe finally reaches the crash site and discovers that Josie and Cruz somehow survived. The snipers regroup with the team, but air support is still minutes away. Back in Washington, the White House watches the battle unfold in real time. Ammunition runs low, operators fall one by one, and Joe begins to lose hope. Then air support finally arrives. A devastating wave of airstrikes turns the tide, followed by rapid response forces that eliminate the remaining enemies. The Lioness team survives, but at a terrible cost. Seeing her wounded teammates scattered across the battlefield, Joe finally breaks down in tears. The season ends as the CIA successfully recruits Josie's father. With US support, he assumes the position once held by his brother, while Alvaro Carrillo is betrayed by his own family, and Joe finally reunites with her husband. If you want more recaps like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and let me know what series or movie you want to see next.